Good afternoon and welcome to Catalan Cymru revision sessions. This session will focus on GCSE Spanish and will be presented by Daniela Ladeiri from e-sgol Penglais. The session will last about 45 minutes where the teacher will go through the relevant subject content. If you have any questions, please use the question and answer section where we will endeavour to answer your question during the session. The session will be recorded with the recording and any relevant resources uploaded to the e-sgol website in the Catalan Cymru area. Thank you. When you're ready.
Thank you very much. Muchas gracias. Buenas tardes y bienvenidos a la segunda sesión. Welcome to the second session. Today we're going to focus on grammar and in particular to verbs revisions. So this would apply to many parts of your exam, so it's useful to have a sound knowledge of the verbs, both it would help with your reading and listening comprehension, as well as getting higher marks in your grammar, in your writing and speaking practice. I would suggest to take notes. So if you do have a notebook, make sure you take some apuntes, and it's worthwhile using different colors, highlighters, making diagrams to have a visual information and a visual revision of those. Okay, so let's start. The first thing that we're going to look at is we're going to understand the difference in between moods and tenses. So one of the key elements of your marking is that you use a variety of tenses and grammar structures. So there is quite a few in Spanish. So the first key difference is that we got different moods and different tenses. So the word mood tells us whether the verb expresses a fact, so for instance the indicative mood, a command, the imperative mood, a condition or possibility, so that is our conditional mood, or a wish or a possibility, and that is your subjunctive mood. So really the word mood, sorry, I'm not sure why I can't use the pen. That's a shame. I would have liked to highlight some of this information. Just 1 second, I check that I can enable editing in here. Apologies for this. So let's come back to the mood. And so the mood really answers to the question how. We'll come back to this, but so far we want to remember that there is 4 finite or completed moods. So we've got the indicative, the imperative, the conditional, and the subjunctive. Each one of these moods has got different tenses. So the tenses, or in español, los tiempos verbales, they tell us if the action is happening in the past, in the present, or in the future. They also can tell us if an action is complete or incomplete. So if you want, the tense answers to the word when. When is it that something happened? Was it yesterday? Was it 2 weeks ago? Did it used to happen? Will it happen in the future? Will it happen for sure? Is it going to happen? Okay, so let's, having understood this key difference, let's carry on. As you can see, so we got 4 main completed or finite moods. We got el indicativo, which focus on something that is real, that happens in the real. In reality. So I could say I eat an apple. I ate an apple now, so that would be a present tense. Yesterday I ate an apple. I definitely ate an apple yesterday. That happened for real. it could happen, maybe something that it used to happen. When I was a child, I used to eat apples all the time, but now I don't like it. So that's still something that would happen for real. If you go into the subjuntivo, so you're looking at wishes. So some is the mood of the unreality. So wishes. I would like to eat an apple. Ojalá que pudiera comer una mela, una manzana. It would be great if I could eat an apple. Fears. I fear that I will never be able to eat apples again. Okay, and if we go into the conditional mood, we got the possibility. I would like to eat an apple, but I don't have any. So it's possible, it would be possible if. Yeah, so if is a keyword for our conditional, or imperativo is the mood of commands. Eat that apple, or instructions. You should eat that apple. Suggestions. Again, go to the gym, open the door, eat the apple, or invitation. Let's eat an apple. They're all imperative mood. So if we focus now on each mood, we're going to focus on each mood one by one to see where they are in a timeline. So understand the mood and the tenses that are related to it. So we're focusing now on the indicativo, the reality mood, the mood of things that happen in real life. They're not wishes, they're not fears, they're not possibilities, they happen for sure. So if we look at this line that divides the screen, that is our timeline. And if we are in the now, this would be the present. That's where we are at the moment. So if we look how to form the present tense of the verbus regulares, so we know that there is regular and irregular verbs. So the regular verbs, they follow a pattern. Follow a pattern. And we got three main patterns. The patterns of the verbs in AR, the patterns of the verb in ER, the patterns of the verbs in IR. So for instance, all the verbs in AR, they would behave the same. So we go, for instance, hablar. They take out the R ending and then they add the ending that are relevant to the present tense. So we got, if we take out the AR ending, we're left with hable. And here are the endings that are relevant to the infinitive. It's worthwhile memorizing and practice them. So let's have a look. Hablo, hablas, habla, hablamos, habláis, hablan. Yo, I, tú, you, él, he, she, or usted, so you in the formal way, speaks, habla. Nosotros, we, as a male, or nosotras, we, female. Vosotros, you as a group, or all male, or vosotras, you as a group, or female. Ellos, they, as a male they, or ellas, they, feminine they. Or ustedes, so you, plural, in a formal way. The same things happens with the verbs like leer, comer, beber. Leo, lees, lee, leemos, lees, leen. Como, if it was comer, como, comes, come, comemos, coméis, comen. Verbs ending in ir, vivir, dormir, sufrir, and so on. Vivo, vives, vive. Vivimos, vivís, viven. It's worthwhile coping and memorizing these endings. There is also quite a few verbs that are, so I'm just going to get rid of those. Sorry, There is quite a few irregular verbs like poner, seguir, ver, ir, querer, poder, pedir, estar, ser, tener, dar, hacer, decir, saber, venir, oír. The verbs that are irregular, they don't follow a pattern. So if you are doing your foundation, make sure that you familiarize at least with a few of those. So for instance, el verbo ser, to be, or cioè, el verbo ser, to be, or el verbo estar, to be somewhere. So I am a teacher, ser, but estar, estoy en casa, I am at home. El verbo ir, to go, is a very good one to memorize. And if you're doing your higher, it's worthwhile to memorize a few. So maybe take it one at a time, or two at a time, or three at a time, and memorize the irregular verbs. So if we come back to our timeline, so we are in the present, and now we're going to the past. So in this case, we are in the pretérito perfecto, the past perfect, that in English would be I have done, I have eaten, I have gone somewhere. And how is it formed? It's formed with the present tense of the verb haber, which you have in here. It's an irregular verb, so please memorize it. So yo he, tú has, él ha, nosotros hemos, habéis, han. He, has, ha, hemos, habéis, han. So present tense of the verb haber, to have, like in English, plus the past participle. So I have done, I have gone. How do we form the past participle in Spanish and Espanol? So we got three different ways for the verbs ending in AR, ER, and IR. So the verbs ending in AR, they take off the ending AR and add ado. So for instance, we got the verb cantar becomes yo he cantado. Yeah? The verb volar, to fly, he volado. The verb hablar becomes hablado. Very good. So if you go instead to the verbs ending in ER and IR, they share the same ending for the past participle. So for instance, the verb like comer becomes comido. Beber, if you take off the ER, you're left with beb and becomes bebido. Vivir, take out the IR, you're left with viv, add the IDO and becomes vivido. Dormir, dormido. Yo he dormido. I have slept. So you use this for something that happened in a specific point in the past. So here, so yesterday I have slept. Last week I have not slept at all. It's an action that is finished. It's an exact point in the past. You can show off with another different way to form the past. Again, especially if you're doing the higher tier, you want to make sure that you can use a variety of tenses. And so you can have, so one of the questions that could come up and even in the speaking, ¿qué hiciste el fin de semana pasado? What did you do the last weekend? And there is a few ideas. Fui al cine con mis amigos. I went to the cinema with my friends. Limpié mi cuarto y lavé mi ropa sucia. I cleaned my room and I washed my dirty clothes. El sábado trabajé toda la mañana. On the Saturday, I worked all the morning. Por la tarde, visité a mis abuelos. In the evening, in the afternoon, I visited my grandparents. El domingo dormí hasta mediodía. The Sunday, I slept up to midday. Por la noche, cociné comida cubana. In the night, I cooked Cuban food. So notice that all these actions, they're finished and they are in an exact point in the past. It could be el sábado pasado, el fin de semana pasado, el domingo pasado, la tarde pasada, la noche pasada. They're all actions that are finished. How do we form the pretérito? Again, we got for the regular verbs, the pattern is different for the verbs ending in AR, verbs ending in ER, verbs ending in IR. For instance, hablar, we got, again, we need to get rid of the AR in the ending and add instead the preterite endings that are here in red. So if we take off AR, we're left with hable. So, and if we have E to hable, we got hable, hablaste, hablo, hablamos, hablasteis, hablaron. If we want to say the another verb in AR, let's say cantar, yo canté, yesterday I sang, tú cantaste, you sang, él habló, he sang, ella habló, she sang, usted habló, you, but in a formal way, you spoke. Nosotros cantamos, we sang. Vosotros cantáis, you sang. Ellos cantaros. The verbs in ER follow the same rule, but with a different pattern, with different endings. So we got comer, we need to take out the ER, and we need to add the specific endings of the pretérito. So we got yo comí, I ate. Tú comiste, you ate an apple. Él comió, ella comió, nosotros comimos, comisteis, comieron. The verbs in IR, same rule, get rid of IR in the end and add the last ending. So viví, viviste, vivió, vivimos, vivisteis, vivieron. Notice that the verbs in ER and the verbs in IR, they have the same endings. Okay, so it's worthwhile memorizing them and practice. If we come back to the to our timeline, so we saw the present, we saw two different ways to express the past in a finished way, something that is completed as a completed action in the past. And now, sorry, I just want to share as well, there is a few irregular verbs. There is a couple here, but the only way to memorize, to know how they behave, because they are irregular, they don't follow a pattern, is to memorize them. So another way to follow the to express the past is the imperfecto. The imperfecto here, it shows us an action that happened somewhere repetitively in the past, but we're not really sure when specifically. It's not a specific point in the past. So for instance, when I was a child, I used to like dancing. So we can't really say specifically when did this happen. I used to like it over a certain period of time, but is not a sure period of time. So that's why it's imperfect. So quite often we translate the imperfecto into something that used to happen. So hablaba, I used to speak. For instance, and to form it, again, we got the distinction in between our regular verbs in er, er, and ir. And we need to do the same thing, so get rid of the er, and ir ending, and add the imperfect endings, the specific imperfect endings. So we got yo hablaba, I used to speak. Yo comía, I used to eat. Yo vivía, I used to live. Yo, cuando era más pequeña, vivía en Aberystwyth, ahora vivo en Londres. When I was small, I used to live in Aberystwyth, now I live in London. Tú hablabas, él hablaba, hablábamos, hablabais, hablaban. Comía, comías, comía, comíamos, comíais, comían. Vivía, vivías, vivía, vivíamos, vivíais, vivían. One more time, notice that the verbs in er and the verbs in ir in the imperfecto, they share the same endings. There is, again, a few verbs that are irregular. There is a couple here, like ir, to go. Yo iba, I used to go. Tú ibas, you used to go. Él iba, he used to go. Nosotros íbamos, we used to go. Vosotros ibais, you as a group used to go. Ellos iban. Ser, to be. Yo era, I was. Tú eras, you were. Él era, nosotros éramos, vosotros erais, ellos eran. Ver, to see. Yo veía, tú veías, él veía, veíamos, veíais, veían. So make sure, again, to memorize those. And we're moving now. So we see one more time, we see in the present, actions that happen now. We see nel pretérito in two ways. So two ways to express finished actions in the past. And l'imperfetto to express actions, repetitive actions in the past. We're now moving forward to the future. And here we got el futuro inmediato. I'm going to go. I'm going to watch a film this evening. I'm going to find a new job. I'm going to go traveling. So to form this, we need to have, as in English, the present tense of the verb to go. So ir, I am going to, yeah. Yo voy, vas, va, vamos, vais, va. Plus a, voy a hacer. Plus infinitive tense, so verb ending in er, ir, or re. Va a hacer un gran viaje. He or she is going to so a means to, so there's a little mistake here because it's voy, vas, va plus a. And plus infinitive. Voy a hacer, that's your infinitive. I'm going to do a big trip. Va a hacer un gran viaje. Va a encontrar un nuevo trabajo. He or she is going to find a new job. Va a tener algún problema de salud. He or she is going to have some health problem. Va a pagarme 100 euros. He or she is going to pay me 100 euro. So that's your near future. It's a good one to memorize as it's easy to build up. So if you stock really, it's a good, the near future is a good one to have. So let's delete those. But because you want to use a variety of tenses, another way to express the future is el futuro imperfecto. I will, like in English, yeah, I will speak, I will eat, I will live. So for the regular verbs, with the verbs in we got the distinction again, verbs in AR, ER, and IR. So to form the future that we translate in I will, or will in English, what you need to do is to keep the infinitive, keep the verb, so the full hablar, comer, vivir, and to this full verb, full infinitive, you need to add the endings, the specific endings. So we got hablar, don't cut off anything, becomes hablaré, I will speak. Tú hablarás, you will speak. Él hablará, he will speak. Ella hablará, she will speak. Usted hablará, you, formal, will speak. Nosotros hablaremos, we will speak. Vosotros o vosotras hablaréis, ellos hablarán, ustedes hablarán. For the verbs in ER, same thing. So keep the verb as it is and add the ending. Comeré, comerás, comerá. Comeremos, comeréis, comerán. And then you got the verbs in IR, same thing, don't cut out anything. Vivir stays the same, but you need to add the ending. So viviré, vivirás, vivirá, viviremos, viviréis, vivirán. Notice that the endings for the future, they are exactly the same for all the categories of verbs, or all the conjugations for the verbs in AR, IR, and ER and IR. So we got again quite a few verbs that are irregular. The endings, they stay the same. For the irregular verbs in the future, the endings will be the same. Okay, so make sure to memorize them. But the root will change. So for instance, tener becomes yo tendré, tú tendrás, él tendrá, nosotros tendremos, vosotros tendréis, ellos tendrán. Venir, the root changes, it becomes vendré, vendrás, vendrá, vendremos, vendréis, vendrán. So it's worthwhile maybe pausing here and add the endings for each one of them and try to practice them and memorizing them. So we look to the indicative. We said it's the time, the mood of reality. We've seen 6 different tenses for this mood. If you are doing your foundation, make sure you know at least how to form the present. Here, make sure that you know at least one way to form the past, and make sure that you know at least one way to form the future. If you are doing your higher, make sure you are familiar with all of those. So another verb that is important to have is the conditional, so the possibility, the if word. I would like to go traveling if I had the money. If I had the choice, I would cycle every day. So we're only going to look one tense for this mood. So we're going to look at the present tense for the conditional. So to form the conditional, we need to, again, keep the full stem of the verb. So for the verb hablar, we keep the full infinitive. We don't cut off anything, but we need to add the endings that are specific. Yo hablaría, tú hablarías, él hablaría, nosotros hablaríamos, vosotros hablaríais, ellos hablarían. Comer, comería, comerías, comería, comeríamos, comeríais, comerían. Vivir, viviría, vivirías, viviría, viviríamos, viviríais, vivirían. Notice that the endings, they are exactly the same for all the 3 conjugation. Gustar is one of the most used ones. Me gustaría, I would like to. Me gustaría vivir en España si tuviera la posibilidad. Okay, but as well, there is some words that are instead, some conditional verbs are irregular. So you need to, the endings, they're the same, but you need to know the different roots, the different stems. So for instance, caber, to fit, changes into cabr. So cabría, cabrías, cabría, cabríamos, cabríais, cabrían. Decir, to say, I would say, you say yo diría. Haber, habría. Hacer, haría. I would do sport every day. Yo haría deporte todos los días. Poder, podría. Si yo podría. If I could. Querer, querría. Saber, sabría. And so on. So you need to attach these endings, but memorize the irregular stems. You got to know the mood. That is worthwhile to know. So the imperative used to give commands, indications, suggestions, and we got, again, in particular, make sure that you memorize the tu form, okay, or the usted, okay. So for instance, you could say speak. Open the door, open the window. You might be given suggestions. So this could be, for instance, if you're giving suggestions to somebody to get better notes, you could say study hard. That's an imperative. So estudia mucho. To form the imperative, you got, so you need to take off the ending, the AR and ER and IR again, and we got the specific ending in here. So habla, hable, hablad, hablen. Come, coma, comed, coman. Vive, viva, vivid, vivan. In this case, notice that there is some differences in between the three conjugations. Make sure, in particular, if you're doing your higher tier, you're familiar with those. There is some irregular verbs, again, like tener, venir, poner, salir, which have got different roots. So tener, your infinitive would be tenga, venir, venga, poner, ponga, salir, salga, hacer, haz, di, se, ve, and some irregulars. Tener, no tengas, don't have fear, no tengas miedo, no vengas, don't come, no pongas, don't put, no salgas, don't go out, no hagas. So this is worthwhile to know, especially if there is if you're given school rules or things like that. And then finally, we got the subjunctive, which is the verb of irreality. So is often used with que, or which means that in English. I would like that. I would like that you studied more. Me gustaría que estudiase más. To form the subjunctive with the regular verbs, you need to again look at the three different conjugations, take out the AR, the ER, and the IR, and add the specific endings. So we've got trabajar without AR becomes trabaj, yo trabaje, tú trabajes, él trabaje, nosotros trabajemos, trabajéis, trabajen. Comer, coma, comas, coma, comamos, comáis, coman. Viva, vivas, viva, vivamos, vivais, vivan. El subjuntivo is quite, most of the time is before the subjuntivo, we always spot it because it's got que. So some examples. Estoy seguro que ella estudia cada noche, o dudo que ella estudie cada noche. So we got to use the subjunctive. In this situation, we've got fear. Okay, so uncertainty. Remember that we got uncertainty. Whereas if we got certainty, we use the indicativo. So I know she studies every night. I am sure that she studies every night. Is certain, is real. So estoy seguro que ella estudia cada noche. So we use the present of the indicativo. In this case, we doubt, we're not certain, it's uncertain. I doubt that she studies every night, so we use the subjuntivo. Dudo que, I doubt that, ella estudie cada noche. Oops, apologies. So let's. Okay, and let's carry on. So some uses of the subjunctive. So we got quite often, we can see ojalá. It's something like, I would love that. I hope that. Ojalá plus the subjunctive. Ojalá llegan a tiempo para la fiesta. May they arrive in time for the party. Ojalá quite often uses the subjunctive. Or quizá, perhaps, with the subjunctive. Quizá lleva mañana. Perhaps may rain tomorrow. Puede que, plus subjunctive, it could be that. Puede que vaya al concierto. It could be that I might go to the concert. Te dedico esta canción para que te acuerdes de mí. So para que plus the subjunctive. I dedicate this song in order for you to remember me, so that you can remember me. Para que. So we carry on. So to summarize, the subjunctives looks at hypothesis, negation, subjectivity, emotions, doubts, probability, finality. So a few ideas. Now, just before we finish, I know it's a lot to memorize. Nevertheless, we got some suggestions here to help us with this. So we got some activities. If you click on this website on Conjuguemos, you got quite a few different practices. Here you got all Spanish tenses, conjugation practice, but you can also decide to focus on some specific ones, so practice on one go. Let's have a look at all Spanish tenses conjugation. And let's do a graded practice. Okay, so I'm gonna start, but there is different one. So you can, so for instance, imperfect subjunctive, tu decir. So you can write that your answer here. If you're unsure, you can show the hints. Okay, so it's an irregular verb. So so you got tu dijeras. So if you didn't know, you can look at the hints, dijeras, and carry on. Preterite, so past tense. Nosotros poder. How do you put this in the past tense? Verb poder, to be able to. So you could Is it, do you need the hints? Do you remember it? So, yo pude, pudiste, pudo, pudimos, pudisteis, pudieron. And you can write the answer in here and check. Dormí. Que yo dorma. So you wanna, if you memorize it and you know, just you can duerma, pardon. Que yo duerma. And check your answer. Okay, so that's a good way to practice. If you want to do some, there is quite a few different games as well. So you can let's have a go. So, salir, present. Tú sales. So we can go easy, medium, or the difficult one. So just have a go. Comer. Tú. Oh. Not sure. But have a go. Sorry. Have a go, and it's a good way. There is a few different games for the Spanish, and have a go to this one. And then you can also use flashcards. So we got quite a few verbs in here. So there is 500 Spanish verbs that you can use to practice. So for instance, revocar, if you look at it, you can use to revoke, and you can try to, so you got the meaning, you got the infinitive, and you can try to practice the different tenses and moods that we have revised today. So revolver was the present tense, revuelvo, revuelves, revuelve, and so on. What's the future? Voy a revolver, past. He revolvido. So you can go back and look at each one. Just before we finish, let's come back to our PowerPoint. So how do you apply your knowledge? So these are some of the questions that could come up perhaps in your oral. So can you find which tenses are you going to use? So here you could say, ¿Qué harás el año que viene? What will you do next year? So to answer these questions, try to make sure, go back if you're unsure to your future tense, how to form it, and answer this question trying to use the correct tense. ¿Qué hiciste en el colegio la semana pasada? What did you do in school last week? So make sure that you use the past tense. ¿Qué tipo de trabajo harás en el futuro? Future tense. ¿Qué hiciste? Past tense. ¿Te gustaría vivir al extranjero? Would you like to? Your conditional tense. Can you apply the subjunctive? So is we finished at this point. Is there any questions?
Hello, there's no questions at this time. Thanks very much. Lovely and
problem.
interesting. Diolch yn fawr.
Thank you. Diolch yn fawr. Adios. Mucha suerte. Good luck with your exams.
And see you next week.